all right, we want to form a society so everyone has the conditions that allows them to flourish. What is the bare minimum we need to agree on? We need to have some common values to have a society that works. What are those common values? And we think it's dignity. We think if you treat everyone with dignity, we can handle all the differences and disagreements. We know we're not going to get everyone all at once, and we're not going to get anyone all the time. None of us is ever going to have a perfect record on dignity, but we don't need a perfect record. We just need a better ratio, more dignity and less contempt. So I'm going to take you through some of our history, but quickly, right? So we've tried the Dignity Index in Utah during congressional elections. We've tried it, are trying it in school districts. We're trying it in town councils and county commissions. We're trying it in corporations, but we want to test it over the whole country. We believe that treating people with contempt causes division and treating people with dignity eases division. This is a significant point. We're saying it's not our disagreements that cause division. It's treating people with contempt when we disagree. This, if it's true, is an extraordinary thing because we tend to believe that, oh, it's grand economic trends that are causing our division, or it's the rise of social media, or the decline of institutions, or the loss of trust. But if in fact it's contempt that causes division, we have power to change it that we didn't know we had. When we put a spotlight on dignity and contempt, we use more dignity and less contempt. This is what we think. We want to test, is this true? We've seen it in places. We want to test it more broadly. Also, we see that when we start to use more dignity and less contempt, we begin to expect it from the people around us. If I start to say, hey, I'm going to use more dignity, I'm going to go with the people who have the same reaction, the people who inform me, entertain me, represent me. I'm going to expect it from them. And then finally, we think that if we start expecting dignity from the people around, it begins to create a constituency for dignity, and the culture can start to change. Everybody knows that a lot of politicians use contempt because contempt for narrow purposes over a short period of time is effective in energizing your supporters. So we know, as Tim Shriver has said, nobody thinks you can change the country by losing. We want to know, can we create a constituency for dignity so politicians can campaign with dignity and win? Now, let's go to, we didn't just come up with these insights. We have some research. I'm going to give you a little bit of the research. The problem, according to Arthur Brooks and his research, is we are living in a culture of contempt, and if we want to solve the polarization problem, we have to solve the contempt problem. So through a lot of research that he put forward in his book, Love Your Enemies, he's saying what we believe, it's the contempt that causes the polarization. Now, what does contempt do to us? This is key, because is contempt really so bad? We think it is. We think to have a healthy democracy, we have to be able to say what we think. Now, this is embedded in our documents in the Constitution, right? We have to be able to say what we think because we're a large country, and if democracy is going to be better than the top-down dictatorship, it means that you and I can see things the president and members of Congress can't see. And the things that they see, we see from a different angle. So if we're going to address them in a way that works for all of us, our voices have to matter. And for our voices to make an impact, we have to say what we think. And also say what we think in ways that invite others to say what they think. So our founders knew how vital it was for people, citizens, to be able to say what they think. So they gave us freedom of speech in the First Amendment, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, the right to protest, all these things so that the government could not keep us from saying what we think. But we are keeping each other from saying what we think by responding with contempt when people don't say what we believe. Contempt keeps us from saying what we think. Contempt, therefore, makes it impossible to talk to each other. If I'm not going to speak up because I'm going to get attacked, then I can't talk to you and tell you what I really think. And so when we're not talking to each other, we can't solve our problems. And the frustration of living with the problems we can't solve is going to make the country even harder to govern and harder for us to prosper. So, what is the solution to contempt? And we say it's dignity. Now, here's some research from Donna Hicks, who is a scholar that we revere, and we have come to know her very well. We've read her books, we've been to her seminars, she works with us. She says, along with our survival instincts, the yearning to be treated with dignity is the single most powerful force motivating our behavior. The single most powerful force motivating us is to be treated with dignity. And so she says, when indignity tears us apart, dignity can bring us back together. This is crucial. It's not just to say, hey, you're wounded, America. That's not helpful to know. But how can you heal the wound? How, if you're falling apart, can you bring it back together? Dignity redeems us. It brings us back together after we've fallen apart. So when we disagree, based on this research, we have a power to choose. Either we treat the other side with contempt, we treat them with disdain or disgust, we mock them, we call them names, we make fun of their values, and we know that happens all the time, continuously. Or we treat the other side with dignity, give them care and attention, we listen carefully, we speak respectfully, we ask for more information, we seek the good in them. Those are our choices. We have the power to choose. What if we could measure how we're using our power? So that's what the Dignity Index does. When we say ease divisions, prevent violence, solve problems, that's a big claim. But the reason we think we can make that claim and test it is that we found that when we scored speeches and we watched people, we found that as dignity rises, so does curiosity, so does humility, so does the ability to see the good in others, so does the ability to see your own mistakes. As these all rise, dignity rises, which means when dignity rises, it's as if there's one virtue and many names to it. And the skills of treating each other with dignity and the skills of solving problems are the same skills. They all rise together. So this is the Dignity Index, and I'm going to give a run through these so you get a short snapshot. Later, I'm going to go into detail in a number of these scale points, but not all of them. So that will be a demonstration of how to score language. This is a quick look at each scale point. I'm going to start at 4 and go down because it's easier to see the movement as you intensify the contempt. And 5 to 8, I'll go later because it's easier to understand it when the dignity rises and intensifies. So 4 is the first point of division. You see a group of people and you don't want to be associated with them. You don't never want to say we, us together. You think we're better than those people. They don't really belong. They don't share our values. They're not really working for us. They're not one of us. You feel kind of diminished if you're around them or if people think you're one of them. So that's 4, but then it intensifies. Then you go to 3 and you're not just saying they're different from us. You're saying they're bad people. The division has become a stark moral hierarchy. We are the good people and they're the bad people. And when you're in this mindset, this applies no matter what the situation is. When you're telling stories, this is the moral of the story. We're the good people, they're the bad people. If you hear a politician who's working at 2 or 3, the moral of the stories they tell are always going to be, we're the good people, they're the bad people. So if you go from 3 down to 2, you go from they're bad people to those people are evil. And they're going to ruin our country if we let them. They are a threat to everything we value. At this 2 level, there is so much anger. And the shared anger is really a requirement of group membership. You can't be part of the group and not have the same contempt. And if you leave the group, they're going to throw their contempt on you. So at 2, you're telling alarming stories about the danger that these people represent, and the anger rises, but then it rises to such a point, And the anger is addictive and you always want a bigger dose of it. But then you get to a point where your rhetoric can't go any higher. And then it spills over into violence because it's the only way to keep the buzz rising. And so at this point, when you're at 1 and you start calling for violence and acting on violence and inciting violence, you justify it with the mindset that said, look, they're not even human. It's our moral duty to destroy them before they destroy us. And that's one, and you can see it in the history of the world of wars of dictators. They occupy a 1. They will kill their critics. And they feel heroic for calling for violence and acting on it. Now, going back up from 5 to 8, 5 is this magic moment where there is suddenly no sneering, no sarcasm, no name calling, no labeling. We're just exchanging information. And you say the other side has a right to be here and a right to be heard. I'm going to tell them what I think. I'm going to listen to what they have to say. And at this point, you can still criticize. You can say anything as you rise up. You can hold people accountable and very effectively. But it's by talking about someone's words, actions, decisions, and the outcomes. You're talking about the facts. And that's really how you hold people accountable. If you try to hold people accountable with contempt, they're going to respond with contempt. The whole situation gets inflamed and the facts get lost. We are distracted from the facts. And the facts are the only way you hold someone accountable because the facts are the cause of the problem that you want to fix. So 5 gets to the facts, actions, decisions, outcomes, exchange of information. 6 is more than exchange of information. You're talking to the other side and you're looking for the values and interests that you share. We know there got to be some values and interests we share. Let's find them. Let's use them as a basis for cooperation. Let's build something together. And at this point, people in a 6 mindset, actually, they feel very proud of their relationship. So you feel proud of that special relationship with people who have different views in different areas. At 7, you rise because at 6, you seek what you agree on. At 7, you go for what you disagree on. Because at 7, you have a very high pain threshold. It's very hard to hurt your feelings. So someone says, well, I don't agree with you on this. Well, if you're at a lower level on the index, you're going to leave. Well, forget it. I'm out of here. And someone at 7 mindset says, well, I don't agree. I think you're totally wrong. And someone would say, really, tell me more. I want to understand that. What am I missing? Help me out. So a 7 fully engages, will discuss anything, even the values and interests they don't share. They're open to admitting mistakes, open to changing their minds. Now, 7, I think, is a magical space because you can use the index to analyze your relationships. And if you want to pick a relationship with a member, colleague at work or your spouse or one of your kids, if you look at when the fight started, I bet you can find it if you look at 2 or 3 or 4. Somebody said something to violate your dignity. And you might have said something back to violate their dignity back. And it might have gone back and forth and it might have escalated. Someone even took it further. Like, get out of here. I'm getting divorced. I can't live with you. You're impossible. That all can go on. But if you rise to a 7, that is how you heal. And in fact, the only way to heal is to go up to 7, which is sort of the area of forgiveness or apology. So, what am I getting wrong? I'm willing to admit a mistake. I'm sorry, I'm not always the person I would like to be. That's 7. And the reason people can have relationships that have big fights and end up stronger is because the fight forces you up to 7 in order to make up. And when you go to 7 and you are yourself and your humblest self, that's an authentic you. And that's very strengthening for a relationship. So that's why, however bad things get, they can always get better, improve it, and even get better than they were by going to 7. It's really where you heal. And then 8 is sort of the love your enemies zone. 8 has all the qualities of 7, but more intensely. And when we say love your enemies, well, the scripture says, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, pray for those who use you. And you could easily think, well, this is ridiculous. No one achieves that. This shouldn't even be on the list of human behaviors. And yet, if you think about it, if you've been a parent of a toddler or the parent of a teenager, and you think, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, pray for them who use you. It's an everyday thing when you're a parent to once in a while do something at the level of 8. Because if you don't, the family will fall apart. The kids need you. They need to be able to act out and be loved in return to keep the bond strong. So we're all capable of 8. That's in us. And yet we're all capable of the whole thing. So here's the point. This isn't about measuring someone's personal merit. This is about noticing where we are at a particular moment in time based on the things we say. And seeing this allows us to see the connection between treating people with dignity and contempt and how well our relationships go, and if they fall apart or if they rise together. I'm going to go through 3 scale points, starting with 1. And this is going to be how we're going to ask you to score. For each scale point, there are a number of bullets that are quotes and traits of this mindset. I will go through them with you. Then I will look at an example of a passage spoken from a 1 mindset. And then I'll show you which of these bullets apply to that passage that justify scoring it as a 1. So 1 is, as I described, they're not even human. They don't deserve to live. They're ruining us. We have a moral duty to destroy them. Now, example. This is the example of a man who is serving a life sentence for genocide in Rwanda. He said, we have to wipe out this scum. And anyone whose neck you do not cut is the one who will cut your neck. So notice, we have a duty to destroy them. They're not even human. You'll notice here's examples. They're not even human. They don't deserve to live. We have a moral duty to destroy them. So as you score on the scoring tool with Ashley will show you, you're just going to pick the bullets that describe the passage that you're trying to score. So let's look at another one. 2 is not 1. It's not they are subhuman. They don't deserve to live. We should kill them. It's not that. But it is saying they're evil. They're going to ruin our country if we let them. They're not just bad people. They're promoting evil. They're a danger to everything we value. So let me give 2 examples from our presidents. This is President Biden in 2022 at Independence Hall saying MAGA Republicans have made their choice. They thrive on chaos. They live not in the light of truth, but in the shadow of lies. They're committed to destroying American democracy. That's President Biden, 2022. This is President Donald Trump at the National Archives in 2020. And then he says, whether it's a mob on the street or the cancel culture, their goal is to silence you, scare you out of speaking the truth, bully you into abandoning your values, and submit to tyranny. So what I want to point out here is the content is different, the target is different, but the structure is the same. Those people are evil. They're going to ruin our country. They're not just bad people. They're promoting evil. Those people are a danger to everything we do. That is the structure of the statements, the political statements of both presidents. The Dignity Index on either side, politically, it's not a fact checker. It's not a truth detector. Its job is to detect contempt. So here's what we're looking for. Are you demonizing your opponents to energize your supporters? Are you alarming your supporters with calls of danger to get them to hate your opponents? Is there more contempt in the country after a speech than before? This is how contempt works. If I give a speech that's full of contempt, my message of contempt is going to come ring out, and my supporters are going to join that contempt, and their contempt is going to be inflamed. And then our opponents are going to hear about the speech, and they're going to have contempt of their own in response to our contempt, the contempt multiplies. And in the end, there's more contempt in the country after I speak than before. I created more contempt. So a question that lingers here is, can you tell the truth without contempt? Now, there's a blind spot, and the blind spot in our country is, and we all have this to some extent, and our politicians have it a lot. The blind spot is how dangerous contempt is for our country and how often we use it. We don't see how often we use it. Here are the effects of contempt. Dr. John Gottman, famous marriage counselor, contempt is poisonous, he said. It's the intention to assault someone and psychologically abuse them. And he says contempt always leads to more conflict. Dr. Arthur Brooks, who we quoted earlier, says contempt is the cause of division. And also, contempt intensifies opposition. If you make your case with contempt, you will make enemies for your cause. And then Dr. Donna Hicks, a desire for revenge is the instant response to a dignity violation. This is one of the most piercing lines of her scholarship. A desire for revenge is the instant response to a dignity violation. So if I treat you with contempt, you're looking for revenge. Might not come soon, it might wait, but if you keep piling on the revenge, if you keep piling on the contempt, I'm coming for you. Now, as I said before, 7, when you rise to 7, you can start redeeming past errors. You can start healing past relationships. And the ability to admit and see our role in causing division is crucial to turning things around. So I'm going to leave you with this. This is John McCain. He returned to the Senate after cancer treatment in 2017, and he was talking about division in the country and division in the Senate. He said, let's leave the history of who shot first to the historians. I suspect they'll find we all conspired in our decline. We've all played some role in it. Certainly I have. Sometimes I've let my passion rule my reason. Sometimes I made it harder to find common ground because of something harsh I said to a colleague. Sometimes I wanted to win more for the sake of winning than to achieve a contested policy. To me, this is magic. He is heroic for many reasons. I think for his ability to stand up and say something like this and take some responsibility, because if he leads, others can follow. But if he's blaming the other side will blame, they'll follow his lead. I just want to say that broadly, as we look at our country, my dominant feeling is everyone is trying so hard to be happy, to find meaning and purpose. And it's pretty clear from our frustration with each other that we're not finding it. And yet being treated with dignity is essential for happiness. And we're doing the opposite to each other. So it's ironic that in a country dedicated to the rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, we're doing our best to make each other unhappy. We hope that together we can help turn things around. Thanks very much.